So I'm very, very thrilled today to have with us Michelle Karen. And Michelle is both of Finnish and French origin. She speaks 5 languages. Michelle graduated from a university in Switzerland in philosophy. She is a quantum astrologer. She is a shaman and a mystic. Michelle is truly a gift to this planet. I had the privilege to meet her a number of years ago and to support her despacho ceremony with crystal alchemy singing bowls. So it's my great honor to have you, Michelle, and to share your journey, your wisdom with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was beautiful when you were doing the beautiful crystal bowls as we were doing the dispatch ceremony. That added such a fantastic, crystalline, angelic dimension. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I had never done any kind of ceremony like that, and I know you have clients in over 80 countries. Like you just have so much that you're doing, and it was very magical, all the ceremonial pieces. So I'm glad that you can share some of that with us.
Thank you so much for having me. So yes, as you said, I am an astrologer, but this is today we are going. It's my shamanic hat that's coming in. I was initiated. So I was born in Finland, and Finland is the land of the shamans. That's the land of the Kalevala, which is the epic story of the Finns. And it tells the fantastic story of the hero Vainamoinen, who was born at 900 years old and with his kantele. So he had this musical instrument that he was playing the runes on, but the runes were those enchanted chants that would cast spells and would do all sorts of magic around. And then of course he was a shaman himself, so he was doing all these fantastic feats. And there was a whole story of the sampo. The sampo was this magical mill that everybody wants, that grinds salt, money, and corn, not corn, wheat, so that whoever has the sample will always have an abundance of money and an abundance of food. And in the end, it fell in the sea. I mean, there's a whole story in the Kalevala. But the Kalevala was the basis of the Lord of the Rings. And you can still feel that in the land of Finland, in the trees, in the lakes, in the rocks. There's something very shamanic all over Finland, and of course with the midnight sun, and in the summer and in the winter everybody goes in hibernation because it's dark 24 hours a day. And that led me in an interesting way to Peru, where I met the Kero master shamans, and I have a picture of that was me a long time ago, because I met them in 2004, on Christmas Eve of 2004. And after a head-on train collision in the jungle, and I was standing at the time of the collision, and I had absolutely nothing, which was impossible because one of the trains was completely flat out, and my friend had 3 broken ribs, and people had broken everything: jaws, legs, arms, you name it. And this came after having met the previous day Doña Maria, and Doña Maria was one of the 3 Alta Messiahs in the Quero community, which comprises about 40,000 people. And those Queros, they went up in the glaciers when the conquistadores came, and they retreated there, and they continued doing their ceremonies and all of that, completely secluded. So they were never touched by the church, they were never found. The villages had a sense that they existed, but did not really know or had not seen them. And in 1954, Don Manuel Quispe, who was one of the Alta Messiahs at that time, so these are the popes of the Queros, the higher grade shamans, came down and started initiating a few people, little brother, little sister, knowing after a dream he had that if he didn't do that, the world was going to oblivion. And after that head-on train collision, I got pretty much selected by the Kero master shamans. And it was interesting because, it was my first time in this lifetime in Peru. So I didn't know that, you don't meet the Keros in the streets, that they are not allowed anywhere. They're not allowed in hotels, they're not allowed in restaurants, the kids are not allowed in school. So I didn't think too much of it. So every time I came out of my hotel while my friend was recuperating, a carer would be there, and they would bring me places. They would bring me to, waterfall, and then I would be pushed under the waterfall, and nobody was there pushing me. And then I started sleeping for 2 weeks and having all sorts of in and out of incarnations, and it was like crazy stuff was happening every time I met the Keros, or they met me, because it was not, I didn't know where to meet them. They just came and met me. And and then I didn't really realize what was happening until months later. I returned to Phoenix, where I used to live and where I live now. I was back and forth between Phoenix and LA for a long time. But at that time where that happened, I was living in Phoenix. And when I went back, I just couldn't relate to my life anymore. First, I would look different. I had changed internally so much that it just nothing made sense at all in my life. And I was already an astrologer, so it's not like the spiritual world was weird or unheard of. I had been dealing with it since I was 14 years old. I was born like that. So it was a very huge shift that occurred. And then I went back several months later to Peru, and then my initiation formally began. And they told me they chose me because they saw in me the reincarnation of an Inca princess, and they saw me as the most powerful shaman in Atlantis. Apparently, every Atlantis had a shaman, and there was one who was overlooking all of them. And according to them, it was me. So, and then it never stopped. Then every time I went to Peru, more things would happen. And then they asked me to bring people to Peru, and I said no. And then they asked me to bring, and then finally it happened. And then they asked me to start a school, and I was like, no, no way, that's not happening. And now I'm teaching my sixth school. So they had a sense of things that I didn't know. But for me, and the interesting thing is that because we're talking about sound, that when the shamans, they use their conch, so it's like this big, big shell that they blow into. They gave me one, and they always laugh on the floor when I try to use it, because I'm a disaster. I've never been able to blow into this thing. It looks good, but I just can't use it. Even though they have taught me, I don't know how many times, it's just not sinking in somehow. So what I use, like for example, when we open sacred space and we start a ceremony, is agua de Florida, and agua de Florida is flower water, pretty much. So this is my big bottle that you can easily find on Amazon. In Peru, it's sold in pharmacies or at the market, and various sizes. So I have my little travel size and my big size. And what we do is that we blow into it to bring in the spirits. And then you spritz. So it looks like you're spitting, but you're not spitting, you are spritzing. And that's the idea of that, is that first it smells delicious because it's cologne, pretty much. And it also, you are putting your essence, you're putting your breath into this. So that's how you cleanse when you have a mesa. This is my mesa. I became a shaman with this. It's my bundle of power. So this is an extension of my power. I actually have two mesas. And each of my mesas has 13 stones, 12 stones that I gathered by going through the medicine wheel, and one that was given by my teacher. And this is how we cleanse, and this is how we open sacred space. And these are the stones, the kuyas in Quechua, that we work with, that we heal with. And even just this bundle of power has already the power to transform someone. So if somebody were not doing well, was depressed or unhappy, or was even going through the remnants of some physical issue, just holding my mesa, or putting my mesa on their stomach or on their body, or having them use it as a pillow, would help already some level of healing. So interestingly enough, the Kiros do not use drums, which is pretty unheard of, because if you think of every shamanic tradition around the world, they always use drums. And they use flutes that they make themselves. So they take, a little rod and they create it themselves and they play with their flute. So they use the flutes a lot, which is also interesting because I have not heard of any other shamanic society that used flutes, but they do. And drums, because I'm coming from Finland and because of the Sami people in the north of Scandinavia. So the Sami are, it's like Lapland is really this sort of place of 7 months of complete darkness with the aurora borealis that's above the Arctic Circle. That's Lapland, and just close to the North Pole. And it covers the three countries, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And there's no barriers there for the Sami people. The Sami are the ancient shamans from Finland, Norway, and Sweden. And they have been so persecuted by the church, but they use their drums a lot. And their drums were their magical instrument of power, and they were actually burnt by the church when the church came to Scandinavia, because they realized how powerful those drums were and how treasured they were by the shamans. They literally burnt them. So to this day, sadly, there's only 3 drums remaining. And I was very blessed to meet this Sami shaman. It took a huge amount of time for her to trust me, because they don't trust anyone. And I can understand after what they have gone through. And she makes those absolutely beautiful drums that are made traditionally. And she's the last one. She's an old lady now. She lives above Inari, which is literally under almost the North Pole, pretty much. And she makes them the traditional way. So this is one of her drums. I have probably 8 or 9 of her drums, but I have only one in Phoenix, which is this one. The others I left in Finland, where I live part of the year. And they're made with reindeer, because of course in Lapland that's all we have, just reindeers. Reindeers and snow and dark, and or in the summer it's 24 hours of light with the midnight sun. So it's actually pretty spectacular, because the sun goes down, reaches the horizon, and goes right up. But it's also very disorienting, because it's like broad daylight, like the sun is like high in the sky, and it's midnight or 2 in the morning. So you never really know what time it is. And in the winter it's the opposite. It's dark all day. The sun never makes it to the horizon, so it's night all day. But there is a lot of snow because it's extremely cold up there. So actually the snow creates this enchantment and lights the sky, and then you have the aurora borealis. It's something absolutely spectacular. And I always feel that one day I will be living in that land full time. It's just an absolutely spectacular place. And there's almost nobody living up there. There's just reindeers, and you can drive for 3 days and not meet a soul at all. There's not, just nothing, just lakes, just lakes. So she makes them the traditional way. She takes reindeer skin, she puts it under the snow all winter, and then she uses the bark of birch trees. So a drum is actually a very powerful instrument of magic and power, in the sense that the skin it was made of is going to add to the medicine of the drum. So if it's reindeer, it has reindeer medicine. It has the energy of reindeer, and it has the power of reindeer. Because of course, in shamanism, animals have power, plants have power, rocks have power. Everything has a soul, and everything has a certain medicine, a certain magic, a certain power to transmit to the person who uses it. So the skin of the reindeer adds, the power of reindeer to the drum. Then the magic of the tree, birch, is also going to add. And then you work with your drum. So my drum asked for specific. I journeyed with my drum to understand what it wanted, and it asked me for certain ribbons of certain color that represents certain things, and that is to honor the spirit of my drum. So this is the drum, the spirit of my drum. Some people in Mongolia, some shamans will put a little head with eyes and a nose, and that's the spirit of the drum. So, and the shaman drum always has one side open and the other side the skin. And of course, the drawings on the drum are also going to add. So it can be symbols that you receive when you dream or when you journey. Or she's an artist, so this one has special meaning for me because it's a sun with 18 rays, and I was born on the 18th of January, so 18 was my number. And then the figure inside has also very specific meaning for me personally. So, and all of that will add. And once you get your drum, so don't rush to get a drum, because it's something, it's a love story. It's something special. It's going to be your ally when you work. It's going to be your ally when you move forward in your journey and your progress, your personal work that you're going to be doing. And you want the right drum. It also has to have the right sound. It has to just, lift your heart. It has to be a thing you fall in love with. And so apparently I fall in love with a lot of drums, but because I have a lot of them. But each drum that I have has a special story, has a special use. I use them for different things. So they're not all equal. They all have their specificity. And of course, once you get your drum, you should initiate your drum. And to initiate your drum, you create 5 fires, one in the middle, and then 4 in the 4 directions, south, west, north, and east. And you enter through the south, which is the medicine wheel. This is, I don't know if you can see it very well, but in the Peruvian tradition, we start in the south with serpent, we shed our skin, we go to the west, jaguar or torongo, we move, we become, death becomes our ally. Then we move to the north, hummingbird, which is the place of the prophecies, the legends, the stories, the mythical, and we end in Eagle Condor in the east with enlightenment, the sort of proof state, where everything, all the stories are dissolved, and it's just the I am that remains, the enlightenment. And we enter through the self. When we initiate our drum, we circle 3 times clockwise the central, and then the central fire, and then using our drum we go to the south, and that's where we move beyond everything having to do with our conditioning, our family, where we were born. We go back drumming, and then we put the drum through the smoke of the fire, not through the fire, but the smoke of the fire. And then we go back to the middle fire, and then we go to the west, where we become friends with death, and then we go back, and then the north, where we bring in our ancestors, we come back to the middle, and then the east, where it's the enlightenment state. And we also honor our drum by giving it to the elements. So we put a little bit of soil on it, a little bit of earth. We splash a little bit of natural water from a lake or an ocean, a river. We put it in the wind for the air, and then we put it into the sun. We offer it to the sun for fire. And then when we make the ceremonial fire, we always put the drum through the smoke and offer it to all the directions, and keep honoring it. And also, when it's a shamanic drum, nobody but you should touch your drum. Once you have initiated your drum, it is yours. And I have seen shaman drums explode because somebody else touched it. Your drum becomes, it's like your mesa, your drum, your mesa. These are your tools. It's not something you can randomly lend to someone. No, this is your power. This is your power, period. And once your drum is initiated, now you can work with it. You need to take care of it also. So Nivea cream is what you use for the skin, because it's a perfect cream. Don't use oil, don't use beeswax, nothing like that. That will absolutely destroy your drum. Nivea cream is perfect for that. And you try to avoid, the paint. Just do it inside, on the sides, around the painting. You can a little bit on the paint, but not too much. About like once, twice a year, depending. And then make sure you don't store your drum in a place where there's too much heat, like for example next to a heater, or there's too much humidity, or there is too much sun, too much cold, because these are very, very sensitive. So if your drum goes out, which it does happen, especially if you travel, then you need, with a hair dryer, blow dryer, you can just put it and make it strong again, clear again. And then the way that as shaman we work with the drum, it's kind of boring in the sense that it's not a musical instrument. That's not the idea of the drum. The drum is to put us in a trance, a conscious trance, and it's to keep our focus when we journey. So journeying, it's a conscious way of dreaming. Like when we go to sleep, we dream. Even if we don't remember, we still dream. When we journey, we travel, because the shaman is the one who works in different worlds. So we have the underworld, the middle world, the upper world, and those worlds are real places. It's not the unconscious, the conscious is supraconscious, whatever. It's not that at all. It is real places. To me, the underworld is like the inner earth. The middle world, it's our world, but a parallel reality to our world. And the upper world, it's a place of angels, ascended masters, the future, etc. And we go to those different worlds for different reasons. For example, in the underworld, and we will do a journey in the underworld today, we go to find, for example, our past lives, or to do a soul retrieval, or to meet our power animal, which is the journey we are going to do. And there's a lot more. You can go and get your sacred armor in the underworld. You can, I mean, there's so many different things that can be done. And on and in the middle world, that would be more issues relating to our day-to-day life, and that you access by getting out the front door of your home, and that you find yourself not in the street, but you find yourself in this magical place. And there are beings who wait for you in those places. So in the underworld, you have Huascar, the guardian of the underworld. In the middle world, you have Rainbow Jaguar. In the upper world, you have Pachacuti, the guardian of the upper world. And that's also in the upper world where we go and look for people who died and where are they, and we help them evolve to the next world. So that's the whole journey that we do, and we can use the rattle. So I have two kinds of rattles. This is the rattle I use when I'm doing healing work, because it has a point, and it helps to be very specific with regard to the chakras and all of that. And this one is my lapis rattle, and I really like because it doesn't make as much noise. And that's if I'm journeying on my own, because drumming takes two hands, this only takes one. It's just easier to journey for myself like this. But if I'm journeying with other people, I will use my drum. And as I said, the drumming for journeying is boring. It's very monotonous. And the idea is that it supports our focus, because our drum is a shield, that protects me, shield, but it's also a boat, and with a paddle, and you're going in the waters of the underworld with this. So the drum has many different functions, and it really represents the heartbeat of the earth, and the heartbeat and our heartbeat. So it's very monotonous. So I have different drums. This one is a synthetic drum. What I like is that it never goes out, so that's a nice thing about it. So this is a kind of drumming we do when we journey. It's just to keep the focus. And my other drum, this is actually a drum I bought in Peru, and I really like it because it has the zodiac, the Inca zodiac. This one is actually extremely heavy. It's made of goat skin, and it's made of eucalyptus wood, which is super dense. And this one and it has a back that's slightly different. So this to hold it because it's so heavy. So you basically would put it like this, on your arm, or you could hold it like that. So it's a little different in its shape because it's round. And as you notice, the Sami drums or the Mongolian drums are never round. They always have odd shapes. So they're always a little unique. And these are the real ancestors, the old drums. So this one is round, but it has like all those rays around. It's very solidly wrapped like that. But it has a beautiful sound, this one, very deep sound. So what we are, so I don't know, Geraldine, do you have any question, anything that you'd like to add to what I just said?
I'm I'm just so full. So, when we think about shamans, I always go to South America, and of course Lapland and that whole area, of course. Like, it's just I wasn't thinking in terms of that. And when I lived in Europe for many, many years, I sang with many great Finnish singers, and I was, great basses, great baritones, great sopranos, mezzo sopranos. I mean, they're great musicians. And what you're describing, it motivated me so much as a young singer. And when I had my son, we traveled up to Lapland, and we actually spent time in the winter. And I remember just what you described. It was dark, dark, dark. We never saw the light. We went on a very sacred journey with the reindeers to watch the sky, to watch the lights. And I remember bundling up in this special kind of suits, but there was something so magical about the land. And we stayed in a fun ice hotel, so everything was made of ice and took a lot of saunas. And this whole culture of that kind of grace and that kind of power and that kind of strength that comes from um, living in that midnight sun, like what that means. And then contrary in the summer when it's so light. And what you were describing about the sacredness of the instruments, there were moments when I thought, well, yes, this is it. It reminds me in a certain way of the whole bowl world, and that's a completely, very, very different thing. But everything has its own personality. Everything has its own expression. There's something so sacred about a tradition of sound, like what you've shared. And I mean, I can't wait to go further and to have our Sacred Science of Sound community go further with you. It's yeah, I'm lit up.
I had no idea. Yeah, because the Finns, everybody in Finland, because the winters are so long and so sad, that everybody uses music. And because the schooling system is so well done that the kids get out of school at 1 or 2 in the afternoon so that they can practice sports, they can learn music, they can be part of the choir. And everybody is part of a choir in Finland. It's a very strong thing. And people go to concerts, people appreciate classical music, every kind of music. They're also very much into metal, heavy metal kind of stuff, which I can't deal with that personally. But when I'm in Finland, I always have to listen to Sibelius, the Finlandia of Sibelius. It
Yeah.
just I don't listen it anywhere else in the world, but in Finland, it just fits with the trees and the nature and the way things are. And Lapland is amazing because it's a place where, there's so many lakes and there's very little wind. So all the trees are extremely straight, and you can see through the forest. It's not like anywhere else in the world where the forests are like it's a mess and there's stuff everywhere, or the jungle. The Finnish forest is like straight trees because there is no wind and it's very flat, or little tiny little hills. And then you have those lakes, and there's thousands of lakes. They say that there's 144,000 lakes in Finland. I think there's a lot more than that. There's probably at least 10 times more than that. And you drive and all you see is lake, 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 lake. There's almost more lake than land. And the land is just pristine, and the lakes are so pure that you can drink from the lakes. It's that pure. And they mirror the sky absolutely perfectly because they're so transparent. And so, I mean, they're not transparent, but they're so calm that you really feel you are in Finland, the end of land, for real.
I mean, and I,
So,
I know you more with the Peruvian whole aspect. So now to appreciate that you bring that whole culture of Lapland and the Finnish shamans together with the South American shamans is, it's mind blowing to me. It's there's so much power.
and you
There's,
know what is so interesting is that the colors, this is a cloth from Peru. It's actually a chuncho. And you can see this is ceremonial cloth, and you can see the little guy here. And he was a sorcerer in the jungle who got trapped and was working, with black magic. And now he has to work with positive magic. And if you look at the colors and the textiles, and you go to Lapland, it is so similar. The colors, the designs, the cloths, the way they use it. And yet, if you look at it, they are distant by what? At least 17,000 miles. And there's no real, understanding that they might have connected at one point. But I do feel that all the shamanism of the world, all the indigenous people came from one place and then they dissolved, and it could be Atlantis, Lemuria. They dissolved and they went to different places, and then they developed their own culture, shamanic culture based on their climate and the people and the history, and that unfolded in that specific location. But the interesting thing is that in Quechua, Sami means light. And the Sami people in Lapland, they are called the Sami people. They are the beings of light, and they do bring light in darkness. And they have this very big dichotomy between winter, where it's very long, very dark, very cold, and summer that is very short, but very stunning and beautiful, and light all day. And the light is even, there's something, the light, even when you land in Helsinki, which is really the south of Finland, the capital, I mean, the new capital, because the old capital was Turku. It's like, it's really, it's like the light, there's something in the light that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And I have traveled to many, many places, and I have never seen that quality of transparency of light. And I think light and sound go together. There's a sense that the purity of light, the purity of sound has some commonality.
Absolutely. And now you remind me, I remember as a young singer, the first big international contest that I did was in Finland. And I remember that was the first time, it was in the summer, seeing the midnight sun and how amazing that was to me coming from California, that it was light. And at 3 in the morning, it was light. It never got dark. And just that whole richness of music, and how now when I think about that connection of the light and sound, and how sound is such a strong force in that culture. It's such a strong force, and it has a very certain character to it, the music. But sound and light is, that's it, and that's helping us in so many ways to change our own frequency, to change the patterns that we have, whether it's using sound or using light. And this is what's so interesting about what you are doing, and then how you also combine that with your wisdom of philosophy and astrology. Is It's amazing, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you were talking about sound, and there is also silence. Silence has a sound. And the only place I have ever heard silence, it was in Lapland, and in the winter, where there was, you really can't really, you have there this white, everything is white because snow starts to fall, even in Rovaniemi, which is the capital of Lapland, but really very south of Lapland. You have snow starting in September already. I was there just 2 months ago, and there was already snow, not a lot, but it was starting to come. And so winter starts around September and ends around June. And in the winter, when it's so dark, first of all, there's not many people out because it's very cold. As you said, you have to get like sort of cosmonaut, suits to go out to see the aurora borealis. And but there is a sound to silence, and that's something absolutely extraordinary. It's almost like your ear, because we're so used to noise all the time. I mean, you go to a store, there's music. You go to a restaurant, there's music. There's traffic. There is planes. I mean, we never hear in our societies, in our cities, silence. And when I heard silence for the first time, it was something. it's undescribable because there is a depth to the silence, and it's something that just draws you, and it's almost like there is an infinity. It's like you are hearing infinity, and you're hearing something that has a dimension, that has a width and a breadth, and has it's like it's something that just, it's almost like it engulfs you. It just grabs you. It just takes you to a place where you just don't hear anything, and yet there is this sound of silence. It's something that I hope everybody can one time experience. And it's so restful. Once you hear that, it's like, it's like your whole body, it's like all your cells relax. It's like everything in you just is like, oh, can I stay here forever, please?
Yeah, and great, great music. All the great music in the world is created in its structure with rest, with silence. With the silence makes the music. And I remember being in Lapland, in Rovaniemi, it's where we flew to, and looking at that night sky, and it's as if you hear the whole cosmos vibrating. It's so quiet, but you know that there's vibration, and you know that vibration and frequency is what is holding that. But it's the most, as you said, the most beautiful thing is that sound of the silence. Oh, I'd love for you, if you are up for it, to lead us in
Yes, I would love to do
ceremony.
that. So let's do a little journey in the underworld. I will be guiding you, so you don't need to memorize. I'll just explain to you a little bit the journey. How it works is that I will be drumming the whole time, and not with my hands, with this. And and then so the way we enter, and there's always a pathway to enter others' worlds that are always the same pathways. So you enter a certain way, you exit the same way always. And we start with imagining a hole in the ground. It could be left, an opening of a tunnel. It could be on the side of the mountain, whatever you imagine. And then you're going to walk in this tunnel. Think in terms of Alice in Wonderland. That's a typical journey in the underworld, where she fell in that well, and when she landed down the well, she was in that in the underworld, and all this magical things started to happen. So I don't like the idea of falling. That's me. So I like to walk to the underworld. So we walk through a tunnel, and the tunnel goes deeper and deeper and deeper into the earth. And it's very comfortable. The temperature is perfect. There is light. It's very safe. And you can stand, you don't have to crawl, you can stand very comfortably. And we will go down, 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 down until we reach a cave inside the earth, where there is a stream of shallow water with nice little pebbles of different colors at the bottom. We enter that stream, we get out of the cave, in the stream, through the stream, following the current, and we will still be in the underworld, or inner earth, if you will, with blue sky, sunshine. And on the right hand side, on the left hand side, there's something else. We won't go there, but on the right hand side, there is a beach of white sand. And we will cross that beach, and then we will find ourselves in a meadow of green grass, flowers, with a big boulder in the middle. And there we will meet Huascar. Huascar, Huascar. Huascar. Huascar is the guardian of the underworld, and we want to have a good relationship with Huascar. So usually he comes as a man. There are some cases where he's a woman, but personally, it's mostly a man that we see. And he comes, and we greet Huascar, we thank him, we honor him. He probably knows already who you are, so don't worry about that part. And you will ask Huascar to bring you to the enchanted forest. So he will walk with you through the meadow to a wall of, it's like a curtain of white light. and he will wait for you on the side of the meadow while you enter that curtain of white light, find yourself in the enchanted forest. And the enchanted forest has a lot of noise because there's a lot of animals in there. And there is rivers and oceans and mountains and snow peaks and deserts, and there's every climate, every landscape, everything, and every type of animal. And once we go there, we're going to ask to the animals we encounter, and all the animals live in harmony there. We will ask, are you my power animal? Are you my power animal? Until we meet the one who is our power animal. And if you don't, it's okay. Don't worry. There's nothing wrong with you. Sometimes it takes going down a few times to meet a power animal. Sometimes he will be right in your face, and it will be like, okay. Sometimes you'll meet many animals and none of them, they all say no, 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 until one says yes. And don't judge your power animal. Like, even if you're deadly afraid of snakes or spiders, if your power animal could be a snake or a spider, and this is extremely powerful medicine. So do not judge your power animal, whatever comes. And it could be a small animal, a big animal. Doesn't mean that the medicine is less or more. And you could also encounter extinct animals, mythical animals. There could be all sorts of things. The enchanted forest, it's an enchanted forest. And then I will ask you, so I will leave you a few minutes to find your power animal. And then once you have found your power animal, you will ask you to reduce it to the size of the hand, put it in your heart, and go back to the wall of white light, cross, meet Waska, and then we go back the same way we came in. Okay? So don't worry about memorizing all that. I will be guiding you so we can journey in tranquility. So some people like to put, shades on their eyes. Some people like to be in darkness. Some people like to lie down. Some people like to sit. Whatever works for you, it works. Okay. So shall we start? Okay, so take a few deep breaths. Inhale deeply. Exhale deeply. And you're going to imagine the opening of a tunnel, either left by an animal or man-made, that goes deep into the earth. And you're going to enter this tunnel with the thought of you are going to be going to the enchanted forest to meet your power animal. And you're going down this tunnel. It is very safe, lit very beautifully, perfect temperature. You can stand very easily, very comfortable, and it's going down and down inside the earth, deeper and deeper inside the earth, until you reach a cave. And in that cave there is a beautiful river, very shallow waters, very clear, transparent waters, with beautiful multicolored pebbles at the bottom. And you're going to enter that underground river and allow the current to take you out of the cave. And there is sunshine, blue sky, but you're still in the underworld, deep inside the earth. And on the right hand side, you will notice a beach of white sand. And you're going to get out of the water, walk on this beach. And across the beach, there is a meadow of green grass, flowers, with a beautiful boulder in the middle of the meadow. going to walk through the grass and the flowers to the meadow, a very large meadow, a very large boulder. And there, Waska, the guardian of the underworld, is coming to greet you. And you say hello to Waska, introduce yourself, and tell him that you want to go to the enchanted forest to meet your power animal. And he leads you to a side of the meadow, at the edge of which there is a curtain of white light. And as he waits for you on the side of the meadow, you are going to cross that curtain of white light and find yourself in the enchanted forest where there are all sorts of animals that fly, that crawl, that swim, all sorts of landscapes, deserts, mountains, snow, heat, rivers, lakes, oceans, trees, forests. And you're going to walk around, and as you encounter animals, ask them, are you my power animal? And if they say no, continue until you find your power animal. enter the waters, transparent waters with pebbles, multicolored pebbles at the bottom. That will take you back to this cave at the bottom of the tunnel. And once you are in the cave, you're going to get out of the water and start walking up the tunnel. Walking up, 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 all the way to the entrance in the ground that you started your journey on. So, what I suggest when you have done a journey is to take notes and also to research your animal. So, the keywords that you can Google are, let's say it was an elk, elk power animal, elk spirit animal, elk shamanic medicine, elk totem, elk metaphysical meaning, those kinds of words. And have like a little notebook, like about, this size, where you put a picture in the first page of the animal that you found, the way you found it, the way you saw it. So it was a flying crow, like a flying crow. If it was a crouching tiger, then a crouching tiger. And then write in the rest of the notebook what you find about this animal and what you are already living, what you're already experiencing, but also things that you'd like to develop, qualities you would like to develop more of. And that's going to help, anchor. And I really suggest that you have, that animal on your desktop, or you get it as a stuffed animal on your bed, or you have a little figurine, a little sculpture of that animal around you, because this is your ally. This is the one who's going to help you in your journey. And it's also good to look at how that animal is in nature. So look at documentaries, films on that animal. And you could find that that animal starts to appear in your life. You're walking by a bookstore and there's a book on that animal, or you open your TV and there's a documentary on that animal, or all of a sudden that animal erupts in your backyard, or on a trail where you are taking a hike. So you will start to get messages from that animal. And it's very real. Like I did this journey, I had one of my students do this journey, and her power animal was a lion. And when she went home, she had a little boy. He was like 3 or 4 years old. And he's looking at her like really strangely. And after a little while, he's like, Mom, what's that lion that's following you around everywhere? So, and she had not told him anything that had happened and where she had been. So he saw. And that's confirmation that these things are very real.
Michelle, is that something that does that change? Does your power animal, because immediately when you started the ceremony, one came in really strong, and then a second one came in,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just curious. So the two of them stayed pretty consistent. They're very very different animals. Um, is that something with the power animals that they change, or is this something that you keep as your totem for years and years?
Normally, you keep your power animal for years and years. It can change if your life changes. Like, for example, if you were, I don't know, corporate America, and all of a sudden you decide to embrace your spiritual work and become a healer, then you would definitely have a new animal if that happened. Or there is a big life change in your life, you divorce, or you change countries, or there's something, a big transformation, and your power animal will reflect that. Like, for the longest time, I had the bear as my animal, but I was in hibernation pretty much in my life. I had decided I didn't want to teach, I didn't want to write, I didn't want, I was done with all that. I felt I had nothing more to say. And then all of a sudden, I started being pushed back into teaching, which was not my intention at all. And at that moment, Wolf came up in my life, and that was it was announcing a change that I wasn't fully aware that it was going to be that big. But Wolf was like, okay, she needs help, this one. And the wolf came in. And now when I teach, I always ask the help of my wolf, and I always, my wolf, and I really shape shift into my wolf and feel the wolf energy in me when I teach, because I'm always nervous when I teach. So so he helps me, ground myself. So yes, you can, and you can have sometimes 2 or 3 different animals for different things, depending if you have a multi-dimensional life, and a part of you is doing the crystal balls and another part of you is doing has another activity, then yes, you could. And maybe in your case, Geraldine, is maybe also your son's power animal could be with you. That's also a possibility, and that's why you would have 2. So one is yours, and one is the one you share with your son, for example.
I
So,
think that's what happened because the first one was lizard, and
mm-hmm,
there's been so many lizards in around me in the gardens, in the wherever I'm going, just little, really tiny ones, bigger ones, and he loved that. That was the first one that came in really strong, and it was like, okay, wait, lizard is dream time, right? Lizard has to do with dreams, and then a second one came in, a very different animal. So it was that was the giraffe. It was like, okay, and it was very tall and elegant and graceful and filled with joy.
that's
And they were
beautiful.
so unlikely, it seemed to me, but it felt like they were 2 very different aspects. That one was definitely related to Dylan. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, of course, because your son crossed over, the spirit, and you are working with him from the other side, there is this connection, deep connection. So in that case, it would make a lot of sense. And I've seen it all. I mean, I've seen it all. When I think I've seen it all, I still see something I've never seen before. So that's what I love about shamanism. It's like Harry Potter school. You never know what's gonna happen. But but power animals are very profound because they are, on a spiritual level, are helpers. And I'll give you a little story of this power animal. I was once going to meet my group in Cusco, and I was in Lima, and I had to take the plane. It was July, and of course, Southern Hemisphere, that was winter at that time. And there was a huge snowstorm, and it was absolute mayhem in the Jorge Chavez airport in Lima, and all the flights were canceled one after the other. There was no food, there was no water. People were camping under the billboards, waiting for some sign of something that would shift. And of course, everybody was anxious to meet their groups, and everybody was backpacking or had appointments with other group members, and so it was a very complicated situation. And everybody, of course, was harassing the poor girls at the counter, who, it was not their fault. I mean, the weather was the weather. There was nothing they could do about it. And for some reason, there was a group of Americans who just took me as their spokesperson. I did not even know them. I don't even know how that happened. And like everybody else, I went to the counter, and it was no, 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 we can't do anything. You just have to wait, and that's it. And I thought, well, let me ask which of my power animals wants to help, and bear showed up. And I literally felt my bear coming over me and embracing me from behind like this. I was literally like walking around with bear all around me. And I went back to a different counter and I asked the same thing, I mean, we wanted to be able to maybe have a meal, have a hotel room, something. And I got everything. And we're the only one who got everything. We got taxi paid, hotel paid, dinner paid, breakfast paid, taxi the next morning paid, all to come back. That was unheard of. We're the only ones who got that. And I really thanked my bear because he's the one. He was so, of course, nobody could see him, but I could feel him for sure. And I guess, that's a shape shifting experience, is that when you walk with this energy around you, probably you walk differently, you speak differently, and you impress the other person differently. I don't know. Anyway, it worked. So I don't know that I would, advertise that too much, because that's limit black magic, because I was looking for an outcome. And magic and shamanism are very different, because shamanism, we listen, we track, whereas in magic there is the lurking after a specific outcome. So it was limit what I did, but it worked.
And Michelle, do you teach this in your, will you share a little bit about your class that's coming up?
Yes, absolutely. I have a new school coming up in May that is online, because there's so many travel restrictions and issues that, it's just the best way to do it. And it works the same way as in person. I share the same rights. There's breakout rooms so people can work with each other. I only take 12 students at a time because I want small classes so that I can really give you my undivided attention, not just during the class, but also in between the classes, because there are 4 levels: the south, the west, the north, the east, that are separated by 2 or 3 months. And each segment, each module is 4 days, from a Thursday to a Sunday. And of course, you start with the first. Once you have learned the techniques, received the initiations, and started to build your mesa, because we will be building our mesa, then you practice for 2 3 months, and then we go to the next module, and then the same, you practice for 2 3 months, and we go to the same, etc. So pretty much by Christmas of 2022 you would graduate. It is a professional school, meaning that at the end you get a diploma, certificate that allows you to make a living as a shaman. But it's also, some people choose to just do it for self-betterment. They just don't want to be practicing shamans, but they want to either add it to another practice, spiritual practice that they have, or they just want to do it for themselves, and that's fine. Like a businesswoman, a Finnish businesswoman, and she did not want to become a shaman, but she was interested in learning. And her husband, who was a university professor, economics university professor, asked to meet me one time, and I was sweating a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, he must think I'm a fruitcake or something. And it was actually the opposite. He thanked me. He said, "Thank you. Thanks to you, my wife is back. She's a greater wife. She's a greater mother. She's a greater friend. She's happy." And he was like almost kissing the ground I was walking on, and I was not expecting that at all. But she really applied all the principles that she had learned, and she was able to make more money as a businesswoman, be much more successful, much more even, negotiate better, and it changed her life. It changed. I mean, all my students changed, and I'm very excited about that. So it's all on my website, michelkaren.com. And there's a School of Shamanic Studies, the Yankai Muna Yachai School of Shamanic Studies. And of course, if even the days don't quite work, you can start with one group and then shift to another group, because I have classes that are starting on once or twice a year, and so you can always shift to another class if necessary.
Thank you so, so much, Michelle. And I don't know if there's any special blessing or thing that you do when you close something, if you'd like to share that before we go. Is there something like that? Or
Well, we always, cleanse. I mean, we always open. And I did not do that. That we always open with our feathers. And so you hit the head, the shoulders, and cleanse with the smoke of the either Palo Santo or Medio or sage or whatever you have. But the way we close sacred space is very simple. So we just go around the directions and we just say thank you. To the winds of the south, great serpent Amaru, thank you, thank you, thank you. Aho! To the winds of the west, Mother Sister Jaguar, Otorongo, thank you, thank you, thank you. Aho! To the winds of the north, Royal Hummingbird, grandmothers, grandfathers, all the ancient ones, all the children of the Kalevala, thank you, thank you, thank you. Aho! To the winds of the east, great eagle, great condor, thank you, thank you, thank you. Aho! Mother Earth, sweet Pachamama, all the stone people, the plant people, the creepy crawlers, the fin, the furred, and the winged ones. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Aho! Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, Inti Tai Tai, Mama Kia, all the star nations, Great Spirit, Viracocha, you named by 1,000 names, you the enabler of one. Thank you, thank you, thank you for having allowed us to spend this beautiful time all together. Aho! And this is it. This is how we close sacred space. Very simple. We brought in all the spirits. We release all the spirits. And the thank you that we do for the Kairos, it's always right thinking, right heart, right actions. It's always in three. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
thank you so much. What a gift you gave us. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
We'll stop.